Hello there and a very warm welcome to another edition of the program. I am Victor Matthias. Now, though the lockdown order is being gradually eased by the federal government, schools nationwide have been asked to remain shut as the struggle to flatten the curve continues. However, in order to not to let the students and pupils remain dormant, the federal and state governments are embracing and adopting e-learning platforms to teach the students from the comfort of their homes. On the program today, we will examine the effectiveness of the online teaching and also look at issues around UNESCO's educational and entrepreneurial program, as well as the effectiveness of measures put in place to curb the further spread of the virus. But let's first see what made the trends in Nigeria's social media space.
After an outcry by Nigerians in the Nigeria Governors Forum, the National Assembly dropped the infectious disease bill, which seeks a 200,000 naira to 5 million naira fine and jail term for offenders against the 500 naira in the previous Quarantine Act.
Well, there you go. Those were the trends, but also you can be a part of the program from wherever in the world you're watching. You can just tweet at us using the hashtags as well as the social media addresses showing on your screen at Channels TV, at Channels Beam, at Victor_MBIDI, as well as hashtag Channels Beam. Well, we're now being joined by Grace Josiah. She is a social media influencer and the program director for the Begotten Educational Foundation, an educational organization that seeks to promote literacy, empower the girl child, as well as herald sponsorships for children who are out of school and children in rural communities. She joins us via Skype from Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. It's a pleasure to have you on the program, Grace. All right, we also have joining us via the virtual reality interface. We have with us Abdul Salam Ladigbolu. He's a humanitarian and a social development mentalist and currently serves as the president UNESCO's Read and Earn Federation and the country director for TAP project. He is right here in our Lagos studio, of course, teleported via the virtual reality interface. It's a pleasure to have you on the program, Absalam.
Thank you for having me, Victor.
Of course. So let's begin. I mean, we are in the times that we are in at the moment, and of course, how is the Read and Tap project going on? Looking at the fact that online is now the new norm, especially as we try to catch up to make sure that those at home catch up with all that we're doing, especially in the educational sector.
Well, actually, TAP project, we actually started doing the online program with TAP project since 2017. So it's not new to us now, but we are really happy that other people are actually joining the trend because actually the education future is actually going to be mobile, not even the four walls of the classroom anymore.
All right, so how has it been so far since the coronavirus broke?
Well, it has been positive because if you know, normally now most programs, especially schools, both university, primary and secondary schools, the fall of all the classroom are not actually going to school, but we are actually online. Nothing is affecting our students, and they are actually enjoying what they have been doing for the past 2 or 3 years right now.
All right, so another benefit...
COVID-19 is not actually having
any effect, okay.
What do you say?
Okay, I was going to say that, you know, apart from the online that TAP is doing, there's also the Read and Earn, which perhaps you would need to shed more light on as well.
Okay, it's UNESCO Read and Earn Federation. TAP project is a project. So UNESCO Read and Earn Federation, it's actually a UNESCO specialized institution established with its provision through the Commission in Nigeria to enhance United Nations and UNESCO mission in the country through programs and activities that align with the nation's priority and aspiration. So one of the priorities is youth development, which is a TAP project. TAP project is a recognitive orientation initiative tailored to make Nigerian youth an alternative resources to the nation's economic growth rather than crude oil, and also making them a relevant global resources for the nation, relevant global workforce. by developing their local talent for global success. We're working closely with United Kingdom on that and Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council. And this program is being sponsored by Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDG. The office actually, we started working for the past 3 years because we have the meeting 2 times in a month, and we have discovered that, okay, in the future, what's going to happen if you're planning towards 2030, Agenda 2030, what are the things is likely we're going to encounter? So we started doing this online program for the youth since 3 years ago now, and then we're enjoying it that everybody is now seeing into the real reality of about what education is all about.
All right, very well. Let's also take get back again to our Skype, where we have Grace Josiah joining us again from Abuja. Grace, again, it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much, Victor.
You're welcome. So let's begin with the effectiveness of the online teaching platform that is being embraced at the moment. How effective do you think it is?
Okay, sincerely speaking, if I'm going to grade it over 10, I'll say fairly 4. And the reason why I'll say 4% is because presently we have about 10.5 children out of school. That's the last UNICEF report. About 10.5 children are out of school. And then if you look at the number of people who are out of
You
school,
mean 10.5 million? You mean 10.5 million?
Yeah, 10.5 million children are out of school between the ages of 5 to 14. Okay. And out of those numbers, the figures that are in school, we also have schools who have no e-learning library. We have government schools who don't have facilities for the technology that we need to do the e-learning that is being implemented. So what happens to those students?
All right. So what would you be proposing for it to be better than 4% that you said it is at the moment?
Okay, so my recommendation will be that starting from the universal basic education, because universal basic education has to do with the junior secondary, that's from JS1 to JS3. They can start through WhatsApp classes, Zoom classes, because WhatsApp is like the application everybody uses. So if you have assignment sent through WhatsApp format to the student.
But don't we? Sorry to butt in, Grace. Don't we already have that going on? The WhatsApp. Some teachers are actually liaising with the students via WhatsApp. Some are having Zoom classes and radio as well as television.
We have that going on in private schools, not in the government school presently.
Okay, so are you saying that the recommendations you're making is for government schools?
Yeah, the recommendation I'm making is for government schools because a lot of government schools don't have the facilities the private school actually have presently. So it's easier for them to implement the e-learning in private schools, not in the government schools. And we have more students in the government schools, which means that more students won't learn during this period. So the recommendation I'm making is actually for students in government secondary schools, especially for those in rural communities. The easiest way for them to get school going on during this period is sending schoolwork, school curriculum, topics to be read, and assignments through WhatsApp platforms. And most importantly, even through Facebook, because almost every student have a Facebook page.
All right, I'll come back to you again, but let me go back to our Abuja studio, where we have with us Abdul Salam still hanging on. Abdul Salam, one of the programs that the UNESCO is also running is the human resource. So apart from the learning parts, so I'm just trying to take this conversation a notch higher now, looking at graduates. Where do graduates stand in all of this programs?
Okay, the TAP project have 19 categories, and then the category of the graduate is actually category 2.2, which we actually, category 2.2, and we are actually using the NYSC members to reach out to them. The category 2.2 is actually, it's above the people that we call unskilled youth. We have the skilled youth, and then we have the graduate, because when we talk about the university student, the graduates, you need to look at what exactly will they like to be doing. You know, we need to understand, because they are divided into different groups. The one that would love to go into skills, when we talk about skill, we're actually looking at skills that will actually benefit the national economic growth, and the skills that will actually make them a relevant global workforce. What I'm trying to say in this essence is that, you see, after BSc, most of Nigerian youth want to travel out of the country, to acquire more knowledge whether in Western country. But we later realize that migration is right, but we need to do it right. So that's why we said the collaboration, the partnership we are doing with the Association of Business Executives in the UK is to actually give them an international, as an external validation that will be like an add-on to whatever they are doing. The purpose of this is to actually, curb forced labor and modern day slavery, because some of them, when they are out
So you're trying
of the country,
you're trying to curb
because
illegal
they just want to
migration.
survive. Hello, what do you say?
You're trying to curb illegal migration in the process as well.
Hello?
You're trying to curb illegal
Yes, we have to
migration
curb
as well as brain drain
irregular
as
migration.
well. Okay.
They are going to curb forced labor and modern day slavery. So when you're traveling out of the country, you are going with dignity and pride. Because you can agree with me that some of us university certificates in Nigeria are not well, given more recognition in some parts of the world. So to make this, because of this, some of the youth or some of them like, okay, fine, let me pick up any job for myself so that I can survive. But with this program and what we are trying to do, most especially the graduate category 2.2, it gives them an add-on certificate, add-on to whatever certificate they are holding, and also to give them an opportunity to become a member of two world-class professional bodies, and this will give them an opportunity to network across the world. Because the reason why we're trying to do that is because IMF says something that by 2050 that Nigeria may be the ninth largest economy in the world. With one condition, we must try to enhance that our population is a population of entrepreneurs and consumers. So how do we do that? We can't just sit back and say, okay, when is that time Nigeria will be there? So this is the right time for us to start doing it, and we're happy that
Let me hold you there. Let me butt in there for a bit, Mr. Absalam. Let me quickly bring back Grace into the conversation. Grace, so just as we wrap this, as we wind down now, I mean, pretty much these are steps. There are steps that you need to take before you get to a particular level. So we're looking at, primary and secondary schools, and you talked about the 10.5 million children out of school, but in terms of regions now, because you talked about private schools mostly being the ones that are engaging in all of this. So if you look at regionally, what's the percentages of private schools, so to speak, now in the country, and how placed are they?
I would say, like, regionally, private schools are actually highly placed because in every city, I'll take Abuja for example, in every area council, you have nothing less than 5, 6 private schools. But then talking about the fees, not everyone can actually afford the fees. So there's one thing for private schools to be actually available and almost all over the place. There's another thing for parents to be able to afford the fees that this school actually costs.
All right, Grace, I'd have to say thank you for joining us today on the program and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Absalam as well, I'd like to say thank you to you as well for joining us today on the program and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I will take a break and we'll be back in a moment with a different perspective. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We'll now switch lanes and take the conversation to another perspective. Now we're looking at the measures put in place to ensure a good fight is put up against the novel coronavirus that has killed hundreds of thousands of people globally. And we are being joined via Skype from Victoria Island, area of Lagos, by Dr. Abiola Fashina. She is an emergency physician and health policy consultant and the medical director of Emergency Healthcare Consultants, a group of emergency medicine specialists focused on advancing capacity in emergency and critical care. She currently serves as the group medical director for the COVID-19 Isolation and Treatment Center at Landmark. It's a pleasure to have you on the program, Dr. Fashina.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be invited.
Of course, you're welcome. So let's begin with how you think we've responded in trying to curb and flatten the curve as the outbreak of the virus, hit us pretty much unawares.
Yes, of course. I think that the response of the state was very admirable in terms of the initial policy of trying to contain the spread of the virus. Of the states in the federation, I commend Lagos State because I do think that they have attempted to set up isolation centers and develop a coherent protocol. That being said, I think what we can see from the global data and from the optics from all over the world is that the virus has really set in. There is now community transmission of COVID-19 in Nigeria and in Lagos specifically. And so at this point, I think we all have realized we have to change the nature and the way in which we've been responding to the virus from one of containment to one of really trying to assess people with severe symptoms and treating them quickly.
All right. So just yesterday, that's on Sunday, there was a press briefing by the governor, and he pretty much wasn't happy with the way residents of Lagos have, followed the guidelines and the directives that, were given as the lockdown was being gradually eased. What do you think could be the implication of residents not, following these processes as best as they can?
The implications are that the virus will continue to spread and that we will continue to see more and increasing infections. As the virus continues to do that, it will hit those with other medical problems and older adults harder. We're also beginning to see data from other parts of the world that the virus is actually not benign in children. There are a subset of children who actually develop severe illness, particularly related to the heart. And so we are all learning how COVID behaves, really learning as we go along, and all of how this virus can affect humans is not yet known. Lagos State citizens really do need to be careful. The lockdown was eased for economic reasons, but it doesn't negate the fact that COVID-19 is still spreading rapidly and can still do a lot of damage to us in Nigeria.
All right, so we pretty much understand that, this cases kind of vary based on patient, depending on the patient. But what has been your experience in the isolation center so far? I mean, what would you say has been the most consistent treatment you've offered, as you discharge patients and you receive patients as well?
We've been following the Lagos State guidelines in terms of our drug management. I think the most consistent treatment that we are offering is actually oxygen to those who need it. COVID in this environment seems to, for the most part, leave people with mild symptoms. We have seen a few people with very severe illness. Even people who seem well sometimes will develop severe shortness of breath that requires extra oxygen. And so that seems to be the one thing that we do consistently that seems to help people at low doses if we can. The state, as I said, also has a drug guideline that we've been following, which they are investigating and doing research on, but so far seems to help with clearing the virus from the system quickly. And so I think that those are the two things that we've been doing very well. Of course, we're also containing the people who are ill and trying to sequester them away from well people. And that, at least in the beginning, was a good strategy. I think now that COVID has spread into the community, we may have to change the way in which we think of that.
All right, so just in winding down, Nigeria received samples of COVID organics from Madagascar. What's your take on that?
The stories from Madagascar are very interesting. Essentially, it's Artemisia. It's an organic product. It's available in plants. And is actually what is very similar to what we isolated to treat malaria. That's where artemether and artesunate come from. And it's been used for many years in Chinese medicine. I am not one to downplay or poo-poo organics or things that are not from our usual pharmacological sort of stream. That being said, I hesitate to wholeheartedly endorse everything from Madagascar without some clear data from research studies about exactly how this tea works. We don't have data from the hospitals where this was apparently used. And also we don't have studies that show us exactly how well people are doing on it.
All right, so hopefully all of that data will come through in the nearest future, and perhaps we'll see how well it did there and how well it might likely do here. But again, I have to say thank you,
yes.
Dr. Abiola Fashina, the medical director at the Tiosa Isolation and Treatment Center at Landmark. Thanks again for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Of course, bye-bye. Well, that's where we are with that, but we'll take a look at the most viewed videos on our YouTube channel in the past week.
The demolition of hotels due to alleged failure to comply with lockdown directives in Rivers State begins this week's most viewed videos in 5th place. It's followed by the evacuation of 160 stranded Nigerians from the United States who landed at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja.
All right. Pride of the Green.
Third spot sees the creation of a mini aircraft by gifted Nigerians.
Let me show you something about maneuverability.
In second place is the lamentation of residents of Jigawa State over mysterious deaths recorded in the northwestern state.
There is a study that is related to burial grounds. That one gives us more of statistics with minimal details, but it gives us also a pointer into the community where to go. It gives us how widespread the problem is. It gives us the clustering of deaths where they are occurring and the frequency with which they are occurring. Then the last one, which is the most definitive, is the real tests, where we test swabs from dead people to give us a clear understanding if the person actually died of corona.
While the most viewed videos in the past week is that of vigilant security operatives denying men found hiding in a truck conveying cows entry into Lagos.
And that's the program. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. Keep staying safe. Bye for now.